Namaskar. I am Professor Manu Sharma. I am co-coordinator of Technology Enabling Center of Punjab University, Chandigarh. Technology Enabling Center is a DST-sponsored project. The mandate of Technology Enabling Center is to create an enabling ecosystem for rolling out of technologies out of academic institutes and the region surrounding it. Today, we have with us Dr. Prashant Jindal. Dr. Prashant Jindal is faculty in Mechanical Engineering branch of UIET Punjab University, Chandigarh. Dr. Jindal has international award in the form of Commonwealth Rutherford Postdoctoral Fellowship, which he did in Nottingham Trent University, Nottingham, United Kingdom. Dr. Jindal has about 50 publications in journals, out of which many are in very high impact factor journals. Dr. Jindal is co-investigator of Design Innovation Center, where he has developed several technologies and he is carrying out his research endeavors. Now, first of all, I would welcome Dr. Prashant Jindal for kindly agreeing to this interview. And now I would request Dr. Jindal to please share his technologies and please share with us his research endeavors.
Thank you very much, Professor Manu. And I sincerely believe this has been a fantastic initiative taken by the Government of India and Punjab University to set up such a technology enabling center and creating lots of awareness and sensitization to everybody for working on technology and innovations in collaboration and in coherence with the industrial requirements. So my group has been working on various new technologies which are relevant to the industry, society, and the people across the globe. And I would like to brief on them with a short presentation. So as Professor Manu mentioned that we have a design innovation center, and the theme of the center that is governed under my supervision is on medical devices and restorative technology. So this basically center was sponsored by the Government of India in 2015, and since then we developed a multidisciplinary team of faculty and students across various branches of mechanical, computer science, electrical, electronics, biotechnology. So the major focus on this center that we have developed has been on 3D designing and fabrication. We have got various tie-ups and collaborations with the local industry and even foreign universities. Since our work is related closely with the medical devices and applications, therefore we have got various tie-ups and collaborations with local hospitals for trials and patient surveys. Since a lot of engineering students from undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhDs have been working with us, so more than 100 students have been trained in these specialized technologies. The trained students have been placed across the globe for in various companies and even higher education. We have also generated a startup also initiated by the students, which has received initial seed funding from the government. Even a patent has been published by the students team along with we as mentors. A lot of high impact international publications have been achieved, and these services are now being rolled out on chargeable basis, which others can take up, and we are moving towards self-sustenance. So if we generally associate how engineers can be related to medical or medical equipments or medical devices, is always, a thing of a basic interest, that how can engineers be associated with that? These are mainly related to doctors. So if I see a very basic example of a syringe, which is used to, inject medicine or extract blood, And as a very basic engineer, if you see, it is a piston cylinder arrangement. Any mechanical engineer can easily associate that, okay, a piston is moving, it is compressing the fluid, pushing it out, or pulling up the fluid. So it is more an engineering device used for a medical purpose than a digital thermometer or an analog thermometer. Again, it is used to measure temperature. But if we see the engineering aspect, it measures the temperature. There must be some thermal sensor or a bimetallic strip which changes its dimensions based on any change in temperature. It is a basic law of science that anything expands or contracts when it is heated or cooled. Similarly, any surgical device, if we go towards the manufacturing, it's totally engineering. This orthosis equipment, it requires complete technology towards clothing, towards manufacturing, towards biomechanics. It cannot work without that. So if we analyze, there are millions of such devices, a stethoscope. How does it ensure that a small heartbeat gets amplified so that our ears can actually hear, and then a specialist physician can interpret? These calipers, okay, this is a medical device, but it requires complete engineering, load sharing, so that stabilization, material, lightweight, everything. A dentistry chair has got many equipments that are totally based on engineering. So the crux of the matter is that yes, physicians, doctors are the users of these technologies. They are the ones who will actually ensure that whatever engineering innovations are existing, they make the perfect use of it. So based on these inspirations, our work initially started with people who suffer from accidents or cancer treatments and lose their bone portion, majority in the maxilla and mandible section. So we often used to get lots of requirements from the hospitals, from the patients, that there are fractures, we want to reconstruct it. Now, if we focus, if you can see on the screen, these are very complicated fractures. If one wants to know, okay, let's reconstruct it. We don't have the bone, so please fit in the missing portion. Now, as a normal, anybody would say that it will require high-end designing, high-end scientific bent of mind to replace a missing portion which we do not even know how it appears. So the process is that if you apply your scientific knowledge and you try to manipulate or extrapolate the missing portion, you know the starting point, you know the ending point, and try to design it using various 3D designing softwares and 3D printing technology. So it is just like giving, you know, a surgeon or a doctor a replica of where he wants to work and a solution to fit in the missing part. So was one of our success stories, which has been published in Journal of International Repute, where we had to fit in a missing portion of a skull. We used our 3D designing softwares, we used 3D printer, and we could provide the surgeon with the missing portion of the skull, which they used as a template to convert into their bone compatible material, and it was a success. It was fitted on the patient, and he's still living a successful and a normal life. Further on, again, we repeated this process wherein again another patient got this treatment done somewhere else. He came to the government hospital and we provided this patient also a successful solution of 3D reconstruction implant. Then some part for the skull and some part for the face also. During accidents, if you see, the complete symmetry is lost if there is a fracture. But if we provide a 3D reconstructed model, then the surgery can be done successful and a complete facial upliftment is possible. So, you know, these things can be further improved by improvising the topography, the material, the thickness, so that a patient who is having a reconstructed surgery goes away with a much improvised reconstructed material, because he has to carry the extra weight throughout his life, which could be heavier than the natural bone. So there are lots of techniques to improvise those material through 3D designing and modeling. Further ahead, if we go, if we see that this image shows a person's mandible section, and there is a small section of an implant located here, which is generally of titanium. Now, everybody would expect it somehow to reduce the size and weight, because again, this is an added component in the patient's body post surgery. So if we design and if we further go ahead into research, we can find that if we add small portion of graphene, which is a very lightweight and strong material, then the weight of this implant plate can be reduced by 30%. So this is an added advantage to the patient, because still it can bear larger stresses during his biting or mastication. So it is again an innovation which will help in improvising the metal implant plate materials. So then we come to some dentistry issues where lots of youngsters face when they have misaligned teeth or missing teeth. Then they go for a solution of metal braces, but they have their own problems. That sometimes, they face a lot of cuts in the mouth, in the lips, and then of course aesthetically it is an issue where youngsters seem to have some inferiority complexes while smiling, while talking, and so on. So an improvised solution to that has been clear dental aligners. It's not that it is a new technology, it is very widely available across the world, but it is a very expensive technology for a country like India, where people want to use it, but they cannot afford such an expensive solution. So our lab has come up with the complete infrastructure of designing such aligners and developing various stages that are effective in aligning the misaligned teeth. So if we analyze, we have developed these aligners in-house through thermoforming, and we can 3D print them directly. We had done this work at Nottingham Trent University, and this has been published now in a reputed journal, and we are the first ones to directly 3D print these aligners from a 3D printer, which saves on time, money, and due to, these days, due to the pandemic, no patient would like to make repeated visits to the dentist. So in one go, in one visit, he can get everything. Then our this design also takes care that the pressure on the two teeth is optimum. It is not excessive, it is not below. So we have developed strain gauge sensing elements also for checking out its efficacy. So one more thing that we got inspired, that for manufacturing the implants, the milling machine is an extremely costly affair. Then again, implants get imported, it is very costly. But the milling machine required is a 10-axis milling machine, which is worth in crores. So as an initial start to achieving that goal, we developed a 3-axis milling machine, which can be presently used for various wood carving, aluminum cutting purposes, and it is a sellable product which can be easily purchased and used by educational institutes and basic industry, which are yet to go for the high advancement applications. Then we developed a hand glove, because lots of physiotherapists get patients who have restricted finger movements, who have joint problems, and they are looking for solutions so that they can treat them or assess the level of the problem, whether it is going towards a complication of an arthritis or any joint related issue. So they use a very basic and a very rudimentary device in the form of a goniometer. But we have developed this glove, which is connectable to a mobile application. The patient can wear this glove during his day-to-day routine, and all his movements are captured by the mobile application, which a physician or a physiotherapist can assess remotely and advise him on how his movements are going, whether he requires a rehabilitation, whether he needs to change the course of treatment, and so on. Then to further expand on this glove application, we are moving towards developing a transradial prosthetic for people who have lost their limb for whatever reason, maybe an accident, maybe a cancer treatment, or so on. So based on that, this works on the fact that the hand can take the signal from EMG sensors. Now, EMG sensors are basically muscular signals that are taken up from the arm muscles, and then they are moved away from towards the hand fingers, and the hand fingers can automatically move. So if a person has lost his hand and he has got an amputated or a robotic prosthetic, then the muscle movement can be taken up directly. He need not use his other hand to pull up the fingers or change the arm movement. Similarly, if there is a spinal injury, the muscles do not get the signal, then he can use the signals from the brain. So, but this is at a very nascent stage, but the technology will move towards this. And if there is an entrepreneurial or an adventurous company or an industry who wants to work in this section, then it is a very, very encouraging and a promising area to move ahead. Then a lot of surgeons reached out to us that when they proceed with the facial surgery or a maxillofacial surgery, then after the surgery, they would like to assess how is the recuperation happening. So we have developed an IoT-based bite force measuring device in which the patient can, process a bite on this machine, and the values are measured and compared on how he is progressing. His treatment is progressing, his recuperation is progressing. Presently, bite force measuring devices are not that popular, and whatever are popular are foreign based and are very, very expensive. Our device is very rugged. It is, it is undergone 100 trials of patients, and it has given very interesting results even for normal people, like giving a trend of how female and male progress, how the left-handed person, left-handed dominant person compares with the right-hand dominant person, how a non-vegetarian bite is greater than a vegetarian bite, and so on. Then we have developed our indigenous 3D printing machine, which can be sold, which is, although 3D printers are very popular nowadays, a lot of Chinese printers are there, which are also effective, but we have also developed our own. Then a 3D printer requires a plastic filament to produce a plastic product. So that filament, is not very expensive, but still we have developed an in-house machine that transforms a low-cost plastic bead into a wire. Now that wire filament is the basic ingredient for a 3D printer. So this machine is ready for any industry to take up. And the filament produced, now filament produced can be a separate product, the machine can be a separate product. We have tested this filament, we have undergone a lot of testing of compression, tensile, and use this filament for actual 3D printing, and it has produced comparable results with the commercial filament also. We have lots of partners across the globe, from universities to local industries to hospitals to research institutes. Students have claimed a lot of fame and visibility during the last few years along with faculty. So, and they have won lots of awards also. They have participated in lots of events. They have won lots of awards. So student training and upliftment has been a great achievement of this center. Further, what we look up to in the future is that we are looking for industry partnerships for hand holding, because we are still at the lab level. We are working for prototypes. We have done various trials, but as a commercial aspect, we are still unaware. Industry has got the experience of how to project uh, a new product to the market, how to penetrate into the market, how to assess the costing, if any steps can be reduced or increased. So for that, we need an industry exposure. We have been training young students for various transdisciplinary skill set, which will be valuable for the industry. If industries want that we conduct a plan a program like after 2 years, so that they book a student who is talented, and they expect us that, okay, you train them for next 2 years in their curriculum, and then we will directly place them. We can do that. We want the medical and engineering fraternity to work together for medical solutions. We have the capability to run training programs and courses for even professionals who are working in the academia and industry. We have got the facility for prototyping and material testing, which industry can also use. There are lots of government fundings which are open for an industry and academia partnership. And we are open if industry wants to partner with us. Generally, these funding schemes expect the industry to collaborate and fund the research program, but in the form of facilities also, not necessarily of cash or money. So we are open to that if industry is ready to accept the challenge. And otherwise also, if industry wants to develop a new solution, we are ready to work with them in any form that they are open to. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. So I think you are mute.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Jindal. You have done a lot of work, and you have explained about your technologies also. Dr. Jindal, I would like to understand that how do you decide that on what area you are going to make a technology? So how do you come to that decision?
That's a valid point because what we have observed our past or academic research generally just goes through the literature, internet, and starts working on the gap area. But we do not go for that. We have our good friends, or you can say colleagues or people in the medical industry who regularly come to us and say that I'm facing this type of problem. Do you have a solution for that? So we get the problem from them, and then we discuss with our students and faculty, and then we come up to a point where we first assess whether an engineering innovation is essential for the requirement of that medical professional. In case there is an engineering innovation, then we open up and we propose a solution for that problem. The bite force device is a typical example. We had no idea of whether such a device exists, but the surgeon came to us. He asked whether you can do something about that. The hand glove is a typical requirement given to us by a physiotherapist. We were not aware. So our requirements are generated directly by the end user who is going to use that. And while innovating, we are sure that when we develop, there is a user already available in the market. We will not have to find and go to the market to find a user. Yes, we require a partner who can, make it in bulk, make multiple copies of that. Yes, that we require. But as such, requirement and scope is available in the market.
Okay, so that's really a very interesting thing which you have told, that when you start a work, you have from day zero you have an end user in mind. Okay, so Dr. Jindal, what do you feel that how this environment of innovation, of technology development can be improved in educational institutes?
Well, see, there are now three players involved. One is the faculty, one is student, and one is industry. Students are capable, they enter into engineering institutes after clearing a very competitive exam. So that is very clear that they have the acumen, they have the brain. It is important to channelize their brain into something productive. For that, faculty has to be adventurous. They have to be excited on working and learning new technologies. Until they are not eager to learn the new technologies, nothing will happen. Industry, see, so the faculty can be a bridge between translating student talent to the industry requirement. So if the faculty can work on various innovative projects taken up by the industry, use the student talent and work as a bridge, then innovations can be improvised. They can move towards the direction of applications by the industry. So in that way, I think faculty has to play the major role in upgrading the innovations towards applications.
Thank you. So, Dr. Jindal, vis-a-vis the new education policy which has come up, how what is your opinion vis-a-vis technology development and innovation?
Well, the new education policy talks about lots of things. So I'm not a very big expert on the complete policy, but few things that were very interesting to me, that they are very much focused towards hands-on training of students. They are focused that students learn practical, they get more trained hands-on, they can drop the theories in between, they can in between work on internships. So as such, it is very important that a student who is joining an engineering course, if he feels that theoretically he has lesser interest, he wants to work more on practical, more on hands-on, then he has the flexibility towards gaining more credits towards a practical oriented course than a theoretical course. So with that flexibility, I think the education policy developed is pretty much in line with our basic requirement to convert innovations into industry applications.
Thank you, Dr. Jindal. Thanks a lot for sparing your valuable time and sharing with us your amazing technologies on which you have worked. They are wonderful, and we really wish very best of luck for you in your all future endeavors, and wish that as you are desiring the commercialization and industrial partners, you get all those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Manu, for giving me this opportunity. And I hope the Technology Center goes on miles and miles towards development of this country. Thank you.
Thank you.